Welcome back to the Jordan Lynae Show, where we go behind the brand, behind the breakthroughs, and into the real stories of entrepreneurs who have built their success from ground up. I'm your host, Jordan Lynae, and for 15 years, I have been an entrepreneur, speaker, freedom-based business strategist. I help purpose-driven leaders turn their brilliance into high-ticket offers that scale from $10,000 to $100,000 days without burnout. Through the Elevated Entrepreneur and Secret Garden Tarot Teas, I have built multiple businesses from scratch, but most importantly, I have built them through resilience, intention, and alignment. And this podcast is for for the ones doing the same thing. Each week, we sit down with bold, brilliant entrepreneurs who are willing to share their raw truths and what nearly broke them and how they rose and what success really looks like behind the highlight reels. And today's guest is one of those voices, and I'm so excited to introduce you to Becky, a powerful entrepreneur whose story is really rooted in bold investments and the kind of resilience most people only talk about after the breakthrough. She invested $25,000 into her first mastermind, and that one decision radically shifted everything. So in this episode, Becky shares what it looks like to go all in, surrender to the process, and build her business from the inside out. She's here to talk about the risk, the loneliness, the spiritual strengths, and what it really takes to grow when everything feels uncertain. So let's dive in. I'm so excited to have you on this show, Becky. And we didn't meet too long ago. So got to meet in person, and that was pretty incredible. Your story and your inspiration, just inspiring so many. So, yes.
Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here today. And I'm so grateful that we had the chance to really meet in flesh at the mastermind that we
Yes.
were talking about.
Yeah. So, kind of getting started, what were some of the major life changes that you walked through, and how did it shape your journey as being an entrepreneur? I know you've been an entrepreneur since you were 16 years old. You built your business, very successful business in the beauty industry.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, if we go back and look at kind of major life experiences that have shaped who I am today, I think back to my first ever job I had when I was, I think, like 12 or 13. I was working at Dairy Queen, cashier, cook, making ice cream, doing all the things. I remember I would go to school, come home, take like a 20, 30-minute nap, and then go do a part-time shift at Dairy Queen because I just, from as young as I could remember, wanted to be rich. I wanted to travel and explore. And just growing up with two amazing immigrant parents who sacrificed so much to be able to give me and my brother a life in Canada. They came from China. They came from just, when people tell you stories of when I was a child and I was going to school and we had no shoes, it's like that kind of vibe. So from a child, they gave us the best that they could. And I knew in my heart there was more out there in the world. So that's what prompted me to go out and get a job when I could. And I remember I was working at this job thinking, wow, I'm getting paid $10.25 an hour. If let's say I wanted to buy clothes for myself,
Mm.
$20, I was like, that's 2 hours of my life I spent in a greasy environment. I still remember the smell on my apron. And anyways, I would put that money towards getting my lashes done at around 15, 16. This was when the lash industry was just starting.
Mhm.
And the girl who was doing my lashes, she was like in her 20s. She was going to school for nursing. And I remember laying there thinking to myself, she's doing this out of her basement. This seems easy. This seems like I think I could do this.
Mhm.
Why don't I do this? Like, why don't I saved a couple $1,000s from my job. You know, I was young. I didn't have anything to spend it on. It's like, what if I invested in a course and just did this and quit my job? And so I just did it. I just, from that idea, went onto Instagram, looked up, different people in the industry that I could learn from. And the lash industry was, I think, just starting in 2018, 19. Like, it was just starting. It's been around for a while, but it's very new in the industry. So there was not a lot of information I could gather. But yeah, that was, I think, being in the environment that I was from my first job taught me, yep, I don't want to do this. And there's no way I'm going to be working a job in my life.
Yeah.
I remember writing resumes at school or whatever, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel aligned.
Mm.
I didn't have the language, the word alignment, didn't have that until a few years back. But in those moments, I remember just feeling this is not what I'm supposed to be here to do.
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire. That's where you want to take the hat and throw it, because that's the biggest concept in going to school, which I had actually transitioned my children over to homeschooling. And
Wow.
that whole journey around the homeschooling, you're taught to go to school, go to college, and be in
Yeah.
debt, and that most people never even fulfill their degrees. And while I homeschooled my children, they actually went back to school afterwards and were on the honor roll. And we went to school for 2 hours a day and we learned nature, and taught them the business and the
Oh
entrepreneurship.
my
But
God.
all they've known is mom being, an entrepreneur. But to be able to say that and be able to teach them this journey, like you said, that's such fire sauce, and going through the life that you went through that empowers you to be the person who you are today. I love that story. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, like, how lucky are your children? They're so lucky to have a mom like you take the initiative and go the extra mile to homeschool them so they can really derive the value of the
Mhm.
world. That is not an easy thing. So I just applaud you for that, because I'm thinking, wow, my life would have been so different
Well, that
had
was
my.
big. That was the big recession. That was the big when everything shut down. That was kind of that time. Yeah, my business and my company had completely shut down. The world shut down, and I always wanted to homeschool them, so it gave me that opportunity. But we did that for a couple of years. But during the couple years, just, I've never pushed them to go to college. I want them to learn the entrepreneur journey,
Mm,
and watching my daughter started a nail business, and just watching them start and fulfill their dreams. We have so many dreams and
yeah.
seeds placed in us to fulfill. So during this whole journey, I would love to hear kind of the identity shifts that you kind of went through, the season shifts, and not only in your business, but really becoming who you are.
Okay. Wow. Such a great question.
I
I've
know.
definitely, I think everyone who knows me calls me the queen of transformation, because
Mm,
in short years, I've literally, and I look like a different person, just change after change. Okay, so the story I just mentioned of like starting my own business, I think that was the initiation into really ownership and sovereignty. I think I've always kind of been a rebel. I've been that rebel in my family where I go against the grain, and I'm not afraid to be martyred for it at times, because I value freedom and truth so highly, sometimes to a detriment. But that was my first shift, was when I decided to invest basically all my savings from my job into starting my own business. It was the first time I felt that rush. I think most entrepreneurs can remember that first time where it was kind of like, yeah, I'm choosing myself, I'm choosing my dreams, and this is going to be a reality. Yeah. And then, so I was 16 when I started my first business. And as every entrepreneur knows, your daughter is probably learning this, and you've probably learned this, Jordan. But when you're very young in the game, a lot of the times you're serving people who are way older than you.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't something that they teach us in school, that they normalize. Like, if you think about it, you go to school, you call everyone Mr., Mrs., you give people a lot of respect just because they have more life experience than you.
Yes.
And I remember now being in the marketplace, being in the world, knowing, okay, I'm 16, I'm young, I look young, and yet I'm serving all of these older people, more experienced. And I remember feeling this identity or this imposter syndrome, and like, who am I? Maybe I'm not worth it. There was a lot of inner conflict. So only maybe 2 years, a couple years in the game when I realized, hey, these people are coming to me because I have something valuable to offer, because I'm very, very good at what I do, and it has nothing to do with who I am personally. There was that other identity shift, more confidence, more audacity. This is something. So today I'm a life coach and a business coach. But back then, I remembered I needed to gain audacity,
Mm-hmm.
be bold in what I was doing, especially in business, and really learn that your customers, your clients don't care. They really don't care what your story is. They care about, I mean, they care about you, of course, as you build a relationship, but sometimes we get so in our heads about what people will think about us, especially in business, and who am I, and da 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 da. But I think when you remember that you have something of value, that you're making someone else's life better for having met you, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. They already knew all of that coming into the business relationship.
Really, what stood out is you being so young and stepping into this entrepreneurship and obviously working with people that are older than you. Having that, it's identity shift. It's, you are worthy to be in this industry, but yeah, leveling up also.
Yeah.
And the levels that we go through. Whether you made $1 million, whether you made 2 million, it's hiring the coach, also the mentor. And you had mentioned the 25,000. That was a huge shift for you. And the transformation is in the transaction. So as soon as you made that transaction, tell me a little bit more about
Yeah.
that too. How did that feel? And kind of go more into, yeah.
Well, Jordan, I think something that you mentioned there, which is so important, is that there's levels to this. And so now in my practice with my clients, we talk a lot about inner work. So this is kind of my system. I work on my clients' inner work and identity work. So I'll give a little bit of context.
Yes.
When I started my business, I had also gone to university for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
because my parents, Asian, Chinese
Mm-hmm.
mom was like, you're going, my whole life, all I've ever heard was, you're going to school, get good grades, go to university.
Mm-hmm.
Like my whole life, that's just what because for her, there was no other option. She wanted me to be safe. She wanted me to be secure. And in her mind, that was the only thing. So I remember going to university because I wanted to make my parents happy. And that was during the peak of COVID. I graduated high school in 2020, went straight to university right after. And again, I think actually that was such a blessing because I really felt I don't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's in masks. No one's socializing. And the university I went to was the University of British Columbia. So it's quite I would say a prestigious university. And, when you think about how much you're paying for a degree, I'm like, this is not worth it. So I ended up dropping out of university, pursuing my business, and then actually choosing to go back to college for counseling, life coaching and counseling. So that's how I became a certified life coach and got my counseling diploma. So this is all a long-winded kind of context to lead up to this, where we're talking about the mastermind, which was $25,000 American. And for me as a Canadian, it's probably closer to $40,000. So I just pause in there, and that's a huge sum of money. But Jordan, when you mentioned layers to inner work, and even how millionaires are always going to need to, I think, pause, reflect, and do the inner work to come back up to a baseline. Like, what I've learned as an entrepreneur for the past 6, 7 years is it's not even about the numbers, really. It's about the extra commitment you have to continuous growth. I think Alex Hormozy said this, where he said, you either grow or you die, because plants do not stagnate. A plant is either growing or it's dying. And I think a lot of the times we as human beings have this belief that, oh, I'm just stuck right now, or I'm just, no, you're declining. If you're not growing, you're declining. Now, I'm not saying you need to be like 1% better every single day is very doable. And I think it's also it's very realistic. But when I invested into that mastermind, it was this inner knowing of, I have already invested in so many things. Like, I invested in my college education, thousands on mentorships, other mentorships and courses. And it gets to a point where, I don't know about you, I know that I'm very good at intellectualizing things and lying to myself at times, trying to like rationalize with myself why this decision is a good decision. And so when Eileen's mastermind came up and the investment was announced,
Mm-hmm.
instantly in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna buy that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
It's like, oh, that's, I went in with the intention of doing this challenge that I paid, a couple hundred, $1,000 for, and I knew at the end there was going to be a pitch. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna invest in that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Little
yeah,
did you know.
yeah, right. But also as a coach now, I really value, my values in my business is integrity. And with integrity comes walking the talk. And a huge part of my work is in identity work. And so I sat with myself actually, and I was like, that resistance that came up with the investment, because you feel that resistance in your body. And it's interesting because a part of you is like, yes, I really want to do this. Oh my gosh, that sounds so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that other part is like, who are you? This is not a good idea. This is a waste of money. All of those objections. And so I really had to sit with myself and in integrity, with compassion and understanding, kind of coach myself and be like, what is this? Let's unpack this, because it's fear. And how many times do we not do something out of fear? And with my counseling knowledge and those skill sets, I know that a lot of these, like the fear, anxiety, anything that's out of alignment with the frequency of God, is conditioned and is usually passed down from even ancestral, generational. Anyways, again, long-winded answer, but
Good.
yeah.
That's kind of what I get from all that, and what I've always kind of gone off of is we have fear and we have love. So when we're in those moments, a lot of times we're in that masculine energy and we're wanting to go, 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 go. But then we kind of go into our feminine and it's like, no, we got to go. But taking the fear and love, which one? I would always just ask myself, is this fear or love?
Yes. Oh my
Jesus,
God.
give me this answer. And it will straight away say, this is love. This is pure love. This is, you know, Or with the fear will keep us trapped. The fear is
Mhm.
the enemy trying to keep us little. We can stay little, we can stay small and run on that hamster wheel. Um, or can hire the mentor where they are at above where you want to be. Oh gosh, I just had huge, what was it? Yeah, yeah. So really stepping into more of the love, how can I be of service? Transforming so many people's lives, and you're doing it quick. Doing
Mm.
it quick and being able to have those answers. How many books, how many courses, how many mentors have you hired to be able to charge what you do? But yes, the fear and the love, that's always been a big one for me.
I love that. Such a great you I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is my jam."
Yeah.
First of all, the fear and the love is totally spot on because actually in that moment I asked myself, is this coming from scarcity or abundance?
Hmm.
Will my decision, the decision I make, will it be out of abundance or scarcity? Now, even let's say if I said no, I don't want to, I'm not going to do this, that's okay. But it has to be a no because there's so many other masterminds out here that I get to choose from. And that's why I'm saying no to this one, as opposed to no because I don't have enough to be able to invest in it. So that there's that distinction. So I love what you said about the fear and love part. And you mentioned masculine and feminine energy, which I also incorporate so much into my practice. And it's true. I think, especially as female entrepreneurs, how often are we operating out of a wounded feminine? So now we're like leaning on the hyper masculine and unable to connect with the flow, with the surrendering, with the faith, with the fun, with the play,
Hmm.
maybe locking that part of ourselves away because we're like, we need to provide, we need to survive, we can't depend on anybody. Nobody else can give us what we need. So I'm going to do it all myself. I can't trust. And that's where the burnout happens. That's where the stress happens. That's where the why did I become an entrepreneur happens. So,
Yeah, that's been my for everything being an entrepreneur for so long. It's really surrendering to the journey. So huge quote that I live by is do it scared and follow your path. Because when we do it scared in that fear, but in that fear with love transforms everything. So I love hearing you're saying yes and doing it scared
mm,
and with all that because that's when you're okay, so huge put yourself in the room where you're not the smartest person. You're
yeah,
always learning. That is a
yes,
huge key. And so getting yourself in the room of, millionaire masterclass billionaires, people that are making $1 million in a day, hiring that mentor and huge fire sauce.
huge. Such a great point, Jordan, because how often do we hear people, I mean, even myself, when I was younger, say, I want to be a millionaire. I want to make so much money. I want to do this. And when the opportunity arises, oh, no, this is not for me. I'm not ready. And I agree. It's so important to constantly put yourself in a room where maybe you are like, just the most behind or there's just a lot of people who are ahead of the game, who are ahead of you. And going back to what we mentioned of separating your self-worth from this business aspect is so important because then you can really see the value of being in that room as opposed to if you're so in your
And
own
know
mind.
everything. Yes, you never want to be the smartest one. You always want to ask questions. Yeah, where you're kind of going with being in the room. It's so keen.
Yeah.
So good. So, what is your definition of success now? What is
Ooh,
something that you could kind of really give the audience of how you define success?
yeah. I mentioned it earlier. I think it's just 1% better every day. Every day in every way, we are getting better and better. Um, and it's important to just stick to the 1% because the compound effect. When at some point when you've been doing it every single day, it just keeps compounding on top of itself because my 1% today is going to be my baseline tomorrow. And at some point, the numbers get really, really big that even 1% better is such a huge step forward. But I really believe that success is really like you're growing every day in any way possible because it's inevitable that you're going to reach your goals, right? It just takes 1% better today.
Defining the 1%. It's the simplicity of what rises you to the top. So I love that. It's finding the 2% or becoming the 2%.
Oh my gosh, Jordan, you just said something actually. Thank you for that because I was reading this book. I don't know if you know who Stefan Arnio is, but he talks about in his book like the fastest way to success, if you want to be successful, is look at what 90%, 99% of the people around you are doing and do the opposite. Because when we talk about the 1% club, the 2% club, the 2% of the world are rich or yada yada, that means most of the people that you have around you are not that. And so you want just a quick and easy framework. Look at what everyone else is doing, do the opposite. Everyone has a job, go start your own business. Everyone is working on the weekdays, take the weekdays off and work on the weekends. It's so interesting that when you just do the opposite, your life will look like the opposite.
Fire. What is that book? Is it the X is or 10x is better than 2x? Maybe. Anyways,
Well,
yes. So fire. Yeah. We'll get that link and we'll drop that in the bio because that book is a must. It's really the journey of finding the 2% is fire. So if you could really leave with one message to give the audience, what would it be? One mindset shift, one golden nugget that you would really give?
yeah. Dream, allow. Give yourself permission to dream as big as you can. Write it down, visualize it, script it out, but make it physical. So take it from your mind and somehow make it physical, whether it's a vision board, whether it's you write down in your journal your perfect day or your perfect life, but have something tangible and often refer to that dream, update it, add to it, create different dreams. Because something that most people don't realize, they kind of ignore the whispers of their desires in their heart. Like maybe a part of them is like, I really want that, or I see myself doing this, or I just would really love to. And they kind of almost just set it to the side because it's not quote unquote realistic. But I think you need to understand that God, whether like, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not religious. When I speak to God, I really speak about this universal source,
Mm-hmm.
source spirit consciousness that we're all connected by, the divine, right? Whatever your belief is,
Mm-hmm.
planted that desire in your heart for a reason because it's yours. It was yours to have. So that's why, Jordan, your desires might look completely different from my desires and what I want for myself because that's mine and that's yours. And so it's important that we take ownership and we really own and give ourselves permission to have those things because once we surrender and give ourselves that permission to own it, the how just happens naturally, but we need to rise to the frequency of that desire.
Fire. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is fire sauce. And just really want to say thank you so much, Becky, for being here and being so honest and so vulnerable and giving us such powerful insights into today and how we can take those into the world. Your story is really proof that anything is possible and real success does happen. And it doesn't come from the struggles, it comes from the empowerment. So just being of courage, faith, and willingness to go all in on your dreams, on your goals, fire sauce. To everyone tuning in today, thank you so much for being a part of our show. Next time, our next podcast Yeah, I'm going to cut this out. To everyone tuning in, thank you so much for being a part of our show today with Becky. What an honor and a privilege to have you a part of this show. And be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow for more unfiltered conversations with purpose-driven entrepreneurs and really stepping into their roles in this world, their heart desires, their saying yes, doing it now. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordan. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.